Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Orphan Stash Project. Today is May 11th, 2020, and Groundhog Day continues. uh, we do have a few kits to talk about in terms of releases this week. One domestic release that we somehow completely and totally skipped and missed over. I'm not exactly sure how, with the fantabulousness of this kit. We forgot to mention it. Then we have a couple of reissues and one late arriving new toolkit from Japan. So this week, obviously, we mentioned Japan was on vacation until Thursday. It's their Golden Week, which is a series of national holidays that have sort of been consolidated into a week-long vacation, more or less, although most people at this point really only take probably 4 days off, not counting the weekend. They get 1 day off the prior week, prior Wednesday, and then they take Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the following week off. So they get like they work 2 days, take a day off, work 2 days, take a 5-day weekend, and then go back to work for 2 days. I'm okay with that schedule, actually. So, at any rate, so obviously there wasn't a heck of a lot going on in Japan this week, just not really so much coronavirus related, but just vacation time related. So, again, not a whole heck of a lot to talk about. But as we sort of kind of predicted in the last video when we were extrapolating on what the, or it may have been the May video, we were extrapolating on the fact that the Notebook of Knowledge is kind of a little light going into the summer. Tommy did come out this week and announce that the 112 scale Porsche 934 Valiant reissue, basically, so the Jägermeister kit with Valiant livery in it. Also, the Mustang GT4 kit and 124 scale that a lot of us race car guys have been waiting on have been announced for Japanese release for June. Also, that will be the European release will also be June-ish. Probably more due to shipping than anything else on that end, just because it has to be sent over there by boat, even if they wanted to send, some advanced kits, via the mail, as it were. That doesn't really technically exist in Japan right now, so there is that. So let's talk about the kits real quick. So on the domestic side of things, again, we have one release. I don't know how forgot to mention this, how we didn't cover this. If we did cover this and I don't remember, I apologize, but I really honestly think I would have mentioned this because we're starting another series here, and that is from the folks over Round 2 at the MPC side of things. You have the reissue of the 1933 Willys panel van snap-tight kit in the Monopoly Paddy Wagon. They've signed a new licensing agreement with the folks over at, I guess that's Parker Brothers, right? Still owns Monopoly at this point. So expect further board game branded model kit releases at some point in 2020, probably into early 2021. So this is the same old Paddy Wagon Snapback kit it's always been. Just now it has Monopoly Go to Jail and Do Not Collect $200 stickers all over it. So yeah, I mean, if you're a big Monopoly fan, it's a collector's item, I guess. But otherwise, yeah. So that's out there. I think that was supposed to come out last month, and just it managed to sneak out between the time I make the list for the month and the time that they update their list of what's been released for the month. So we kind of just sort of missed that one. Oops. So that'll take us overseas to Japan. 2 Hasegawa kits. These are both just straight restock reissues. First up, you have this. It's the Niseki Trust Porsche 962C for the 1991 Le Mans running. Technically, I don't think this is an accurate Le Mans because it's not a long tail, although the long tail 962s may have gone away by 1991. I will admit I'm not totally on top of my Group C knowledge, as I should be. I just know that when the 962Cs first came out back in the mid-1980s, there was a long tail version with an sort of extended, obviously, beyond the rear. We'll leave that in there. The rear wheel wells, the wing and the overhang was much longer. This picture doesn't seem to show that being a long wheelbase or long rear wing version. So perhaps by the time it wasn't, but at any rate, that kit's back out there. That was released probably about 2 years ago or so and sold out. And then the other one that came back, which is cool because I wanted to grab one of these and I just never quite got around to it. And now it makes sense seeing that Lancia Stratos got reissued from the San Remo rally that had the dirt tires on it, because they were obviously running the dirt tires and the dirt wheels. So Shazam, it is the reissue of the 77 Safari Rally Lancia Stratos. They didn't necessarily do particularly well in the Safari Rally, but as you can see from the box art, it does have those narrower dirt tires and the dirt rims that are completely different from sort of the five-spoke, I think they're Campanelli wheels that are on the normal rally version. I just like this because it's got a you know a wheel and tire strapped to the roof. It's got all the overhanging roll bars on the front and the back. I think it's just a very interesting off-roading of a car that was really not an off-road car. So that's back out there for anybody who wants it. It's got the same livery as the 77 Monte Carlo car does, you know, minus the differences for the Safari Rally badging and things like that. But I just think it's a cool piece in all of the tube roll caging that's sort of just randomly bolted to the space frame to make that a off-road vehicle. And then the last kit, which I said is a new toolkit, and technically I guess this is also a domestic release, if you wanted to call it that, although it is a Japanese kit. But we here in the United States got it this week. Screw you, rest of the world, and your June release date. That is the new Ford Mustang GT4. So yes, this is not a preview copy, so I don't know somebody at Tamiya who sent me one. This is released here in the United States. It is not a full detail kit. It has a bottom part of it has an engine block in two halves, like a traditional U.S. kit engine. And then it has a somewhat detailed underside of the engine, like the transmission, the bell housing, the flat sump oil pan, and things like that. However, there is a big aero plate that sits underneath of the engine compartment, as is the case with most modern cars. And all of that goes away. You never see it again. So I know a lot of people are on the no engine in this fence, and that's fine. The thing to consider with an engine is the fact that there's currently like 3 or 4 pieces to this engine. To do a full US spec sort of engine, because this is a race car, it doesn't have all the plastic crap on it that a normal Mustang would have. You're probably talking about another $25,000 worth of development costs in the engine without worrying about putting the top half of the engine bay, like actually detailing the top of the strut towers, making an engine bay for this, firewall, master brake cylinder, radiator, hoses, all that sort of stuff. Plus, this hood has these big honking vents in it. If you go look up pictures of this car online, the real one, this hood flexes when it's open, just because it's just a piece of carbon fiber, or maybe it's even fiberglass, and it's all cattywampus when it's open because it's still using like the stick hood pull that a normal Mustang would use. So it tends to bend around. It tends to sag off the side of the of that hood strut. That's not the term I want to use. Hood sticker opener is not a technical term either. But at any rate, this hood is, like I said, very, very flimsy, very, very light, obviously. And trying to make this a separate piece probably would have been a mess. It's molded into the car, and I just think from like I said, we're engine up on 6 years of doing this show. So I'm going to rely on my 6 years of manufacturing knowledge at this point, that making this would have been a pain in the ass, because in order to make it as thin as it really is in real life, probably would have meant every single one of these would have come out warped, or would have required several attachment points to the runner to keep it straight. Also, there's minimal under hood detail to this, so anything you did either on the top or the bottom would more than likely leave sink marks. So I, from a cost perspective and an engineering perspective, I understand why they didn't do that. I'm sure that somebody, I don't know who, I've heard rumors, but nobody's definitively claimed the project yet, so I'm not going to name names. But some resin caster somewhere is going to invariably offer an engine bay and the top half of the engine, if not an entire engine. It does, like, this thing is on the chassis. We're going to do a look at this on the other channel, so now would be a good time to go subscribe to the other channel. it does have a rear axle with a drive shaft attached, monogram-ish from the 1980s, actually. And there is, like I said, a whole engine here. So the chassis is blank on the other side. You attach everything to the chassis. Nothing is really molded into it other than maybe the brake coolers. Thinking back to the look at the instructions I did of this the other night. So it's possible to have somebody tool up an entire engine for this and just have it drop fit in and attach to the drive shaft, or just build the top half of the engine off the block that's already in here and provide a bay. A couple different ways that somebody could go about fixing the problem of it not having an engine. Currently, the price for this in the United States is $42 ish. Some places may offer it a little bit less. The less depends on whether or not you had to ship it to you. I said this was $42. My local hobby shop is doing a thing now where they're open on Saturdays for curbside pickup. So we picked up actually 2 of these because I have a couple of ideas for the liveries for these that I'm going to be dragging Adobe Illustrator out for in the next couple of days. And there's already some, I think IndyCals has a couple of decals now. Whether or not those decals will fit this, I couldn't swear on my grave about, just because this literally just came out last Wednesday. So this kit's been out for like 4 days at this point, and I don't, know if those decals have been fit to a body, because I don't know whether or not a body was available to fit them to. Looking at them, it's kind of 50-50 in my opinion of whether or not I think that the decal contours fit the actual body shape. That being said, and there's no knock on IndyCals, just the way decals work. If you want them to fit the body, you got to actually test fit them to the body before you actually sell them. And Blue Stuff has announced they're going to do the Volt Racing version of this, which is the banana yellow, bright yellow one that's usually comes up in every single Ford GT4 Google image search you'll do. So those will be out. I know Frankie's expressed some interest in doing them. I think Diego's expressed interest in doing one livery or another. There's only a couple of these that ran outside the United States at this point. There's a couple, 2 or 3 of them that ran British GT, and then one, the Multimatic with this actual color of car, and just a very minorly modified door placard. Otherwise, you use all the decals from the kit, which is going to be kind of awesome to do on the design side of things. Ran a one-off race at the FFSA, which is the French National GT4 Championship, and didn't really do particularly well, but it showed a Mustang over there, and it was a one-off. Paul Ricard, last race of the season, and there's not been a Mustang back since. So it'll be, a very quick, simple set of decals to do because again, you're using almost all of the kit decals and just replacing a few pieces. And it's also sort of like a oh, look at that special thing, because again, we ran one race and that was it. These were obviously raced very extensively in IMSA, in Pirelli World Challenge, in what is now the we call Sprint X, which is the GT4 attached to the World Challenge America, GT World Challenge America, powered by Amazon Web Services, Sprint X, which is Pirelli World Challenge, Blancpain Championship America of GT4 series. The namings on the things in the United States have changed like 4 times in the last 3 years, so it's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on. You'll notice if you look at these things over the course of time on a Google image search, this was a Continental Sports Car Challenge. Now it's the Michelin Sports Car Challenge. So the tire branding has changed, and that changed the entire name of the series as well. So there's certain cars that ran both series will have up to like 3 or 4 different placards that they ran during the year, which doesn't count cars that ran in the IMSA side of things, which is either the Continental or the Michelin Sports Car Challenge, that ran special liveries for the 4th of July, like the IMSA cars do, and things like that. So they're for the U.S. builder who is into liveries, and it's not just going to build one of these as the presentation car to say they built one. There are certainly a lot of options here, and the car has won a number of IMSA races, a number of Pirelli World Challenge races. I think they won a couple of Sprint X races last year, so there are some winning liveries from this. This car, as we'll leave you with this. This car itself, this German gray color, is the presentation car from the 2017. They call it the Goodwin Festival of Speed livery, and then they also include decals in here to do this white car. which is the presentation car from Ford itself for the 2018. Like, hey, look, we make race cars presentations. So both sets of decals are included in the box if you want to just stick with your box decals. Overall, it looks like a very nice kit. Like I said, we'll go more in depth into it on the other channel. And yeah, so that's this week, guys. Hope everybody's staying safe. Keep your distance. Certain places and places and things are, starting to ease their restrictions. That doesn't mean it's a free-for-all at the pool. It doesn't mean that you need to go sit down at Olive Garden with 500 other people. Keep in mind that it's we are hopefully on the downward side of that bell arc that of infections, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't go back up again if people don't mind their P's and Q's. Just be safe still. It's not time to let your guard down. Otherwise we'll all get locked back in our houses again. So anyway, guys, hope you had a great weekend, and we'll see you guys on the other side.